The price of friendship. Why solitude is your greatest freedom. What if the loneliest thing you can possibly do is surround yourself with people? What if true resonant connection isn't found in the shallow clamor of crowds, but in the fierce courage to stand alone? You keep collecting contacts, friends, followers, people who know your name, but have no idea of your silence. But tell me, when exactly did companionship become a quota to fill? Imagine this. Your phone lights up. The group chat is buzzing. Plans are forming for the weekend, and you feel it. That precise pressure, that social obligation wrapping around your chest like a vice. You desperately don't want to go. But you can't say that, can you? Because what would they think? What would your absence mean about you? So, you go. You perform. You laugh at the right moments. You nod. You agree. You become smaller and smaller until you are just an echo of what they expect. And later, alone in your car driving home, you feel more desperately lonely than if you had simply stayed home by yourself. Schopenhauer once wrote, "We forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people." 3/4, not a little fraction, almost everything you are. And today we are going to follow that brutal thread. We'll explore why chasing conventional friendship might just be the worst thing you can do for your soul, because the price you're paying is far higher than you know. The fatigue of performance. Every morning you check your messages, you respond to the group chat, you react to their stories. You keep the digital thread alive, not because you genuinely want to, but because you have to. Because if you don't, the silence immediately becomes suspicious. You okay? You've been quiet? Everything all right? As if your natural absence is a problem to be solved, as if your silence is a cry for help. You're with a friend. They're talking about their latest promotion, their relationship drama, their exhausting vacation plans. And you are nodding, smiling, saying all the right, predictable things. But inside, something is dying. Because you don't care about their drama. You're not interested in their superficial accounts. But you can't say that. So you perform interest, you manufacture enthusiasm, you give them the precisely calibrated reaction they came for, and piece by piece, you disappear. Evening comes. Another obligation wrapped in the language of friendship. You want to say no. You need to say no. But the excuses are running out and the judgment is building up. You never come out anymore. You're becoming a hermit. You're changing. As if staying exactly the same for their comfort is your job, as if your evolution is their enemy. So you go again, you smile again, you pretend again, and when you finally get home, you collapse, hollow and drained. Not from physical exertion, but from the performance, the constant monitoring of your words, the careful calibration of your expressions, the endless adjustment of your personality to precisely fit the room. Why does connection feel like work now? And why does being around people make you feel more profoundly alone? Schopenhauer saw this dynamic with crystal clarity. He wrote, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. For it is only when he is alone that he is really free." Think about that. Only when alone. When you're with friends, who are you? Are you the version of yourself that says what you actually thinks, or the version that says what keeps the peace? Do you share your darkest, strangest thoughts, or do you keep them locked away because they wouldn't understand? The truth is brutal. You're not yourself around them. You are the acceptable, pre-approved version of you they can tolerate. The vertigo of conformity. There was a famous study on social conformity, the Ash experiments. The task was simple. Look at 3 lines and say which one matches the reference line. An easy task, but you were in a room with actors who all unanimously gave the wrong answer. Now it was your turn. What did most people do? 75% conformed at least once. They gave the wrong answer. They chose social acceptance over observable reality. The researcher wrote, "The tendency to conformity in our society is so strong that reasonably intelligent and well-meaning young people are willing to call white black, deny what they can see with their own eyes just to fit in. And you do this every single day. You laugh at jokes that aren't funny. You agree with opinions you don't hold. You stay silent when you should speak. All of it calculated, all of it performed, all of it designed to maintain acceptance." Schopenhauer understood the debilitating cost of this performance. He observed, "In order to live at peace with others, society has to tolerate a great deal of stupidity. Each conceals from the other his true thoughts. So, what is the point of friendship if you can't be yourself? What is the actual value of connection if it requires a profound disconnection from your truth? The theft of time and energy. Your phone vibrates, a friend you haven't spoken to in months. Hey, we should catch up. Immediately you feel it, that heavy weight, that obligation, because you know what catch-up means. It means scheduling, small talk, surface conversation, recounting the same old stories, for the sole purpose of maintaining a connection that neither of you actually needs. You have a dozen close friends. Each one expects regular communication, emotional availability, birthday acknowledgement, and life event participation. Time, energy, attention. Multiply that by 12. Now add work, family, and other obligations. When exactly were you planning to have a life of your own?" Schopenhauer was merciless about the value of inner life. The more unintelligent a man is, the less mysterious existence seems to him. The less intelligent need constant company because they don't have an inner world rich enough to sustain them. But you have depths to explore, questions that demand silence to develop, work that requires focus. Every hour you spend maintaining superfluous friendships is an hour stolen from yourself, your work, and your growth. And here is the dark secret. Most friendships are deeply transactional. They come to you when they need validation, advice, an audience, or emotional labor. But where are they when you need silence? When you need to disappear for months to work on something meaningful? When you need to be left alone? They call you distant, cold, or changed. As if your independence is a personal betrayal. As if your essential need for solitude is a rejection of them. Nietzsche saw this difference clearly. The spiritually evolved ones flee into solitude because they have too much to communicate. The deep ones need solitude because they have everything inside. The anchor of stagnation. You share your ambitions with your friends. One wants to start a business, but they've been saying that for 3 years. Another wants to write a book, but they haven't written a word. They all have big, beautiful dreams, but they never execute. And secretly, they don't want you to either. You start working on something real, something ambitious that requires serious sacrifice. What happens? They say they're supportive, but their questions betray them. Don't you think that's risky? Shouldn't you be more realistic? What if it doesn't work out? Every question is a tiny anchor, trying to pull you back down to their comfortable level because your growth is a mirror. Your discipline exposes their excuses. Your focus highlights their distraction. Your evolution makes their stagnation visible, and they cannot tolerate it. This is the tall poppy syndrome. When someone rises above the group immediately cuts them down. You felt this. You choose solitude. They call you antisocial. You start reading philosophy. They call you pretentious. Every choice toward authentic growth is met with resistance, cleverly disguised as concern. And here is the trap. You start to believe them. You dim your light. You shrink your ambitions. You become acceptable again. And they celebrate. You're back. We missed you. They missed the version of you that made them feel better about their own comfortable lives. The loneliness of depth. You are going through something real. a dark night of the soul, a fundamental questioning of everything you thought you knew. You try to share it with a friend. They listen, they nod, they say the surface-level hollow words, "It'll get better." You're overthinking it. You just need to get out more. And you realize they don't understand. They can't understand. Not because they're bad people, but because they haven't been where you are. They haven't stared into the void. They haven't questioned the foundation of meaning itself. Schopenhauer knew this deep: loneliness. A man of genius can hardly be sociable, for what dialogues could indeed be so intelligent and entertaining as his own monologues? What dialogues could be so intelligent as his own monologues? It sounds arrogant until you've experienced it, until you've spent an hour in deep thought, making profound connections, and then you go to dinner and the conversation is about trivial drama. You sit there thinking, "I was just contemplating the nature of consciousness, and now I'm hearing about this?" Jung defined the real isolation. Loneliness does not come from having no people about one, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself. That is the real loneliness. Not the absence of people, but the presence of people who cannot meet you where you are. The non-negotiable time. Everyone wants access to your time, your energy, and your attention, but very few deserve it. You have maybe 16 waking hours in a day. After work, after obligations, after maintenance of relationships, after responding to messages, how many hours remain that are truly yours? 2, 3, if you're lucky. In those precious few hours, you are supposed to pursue your purpose, develop your craft, think deeply, and create something meaningful. Schopenhauer was blunt. We should treat our minds as we treat our bodies. We keep them fit by giving them daily labor. Daily labor of the mind in solitude. Every social obligation is a theft of that labor. And here is the cruelest truth. Most people will take everything you give them and then ask for more. They don't respect your time because they don't respect their own. They don't value your solitude because they fear their own. Marcus Aurelius saw the solution. If you seek tranquility, do less. Or more accurately, do what's essential. Is that friendship essential? Or is it just comfortable, expected, normal? Normal people have friends. Normal people fear being alone. But you're not trying to be normal, are you? The freedom of aloneness. There is a different path, one that requires a courage most people don't possess. Deliberate solitude. Not loneliness, not isolation born from rejection, but chosen aloneness, curated peace, protected time. Schopenhauer wrote, "What a man is contributes much more to his happiness than what he has or how he is regarded by others." What he is in himself alone. The people who changed the world, Tesla, Newton, Schopenhauer, were they at every party? Were they maintaining dozens of friendships? No. They were alone in their studies, creating, thinking, building. Were they lonely, or were they free? Loneliness is a wound, the feeling that something is missing, that you are incomplete without others. Aloneness is wholeness, the profound recognition that you are complete in yourself, that you don't need anyone to validate your existence. Jung wrote about this liberation. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who your friends need you to be. Here's what happens when you choose solitude. At first, it's deeply uncomfortable. The silence is loud, the invitations stop coming, the group chats go silent, and there is a real grief in that. But then something shifts. Your mind begins to clear, the obligations lift, and suddenly you have space, hours upon hours of uninterrupted time to think, to create, to explore the depths of your own consciousness. You are not performing anymore, you are just being. And in that being, your actual self emerges. Schopenhauer called this inner wealth. A man who has inner wealth asks of the external world nothing but the negative gift of leisure, nothing but time and silence. And from that silence, everything else comes. Nietzsche understood the cost of the alternative. In solitude, the lonely man is eaten up by himself, in the world by the many, consumed piece by piece until there's nothing left. That is what friendship unchecked costs yourself. The radical choice. I am not saying burn every bridge. I am saying be ruthlessly selective. Most people in your life are there by accident, proximity, convenience, habit, not because they add to your life, but because removing them seems hard. Schopenhauer wrote, "Ordinary people think merely of spending time. Great men think of using it." Is the return on your friendship investment worth the time, the energy, the self? For most, the answer is no. They don't make you better. They don't challenge you to grow. They just exist, taking up space. Here's the radical thought: let them drift. Stop initiating, stop maintaining, stop performing, and see who remains. See who actually values you enough to reach through your silence. Most won't, and that is not a tragedy. That is information. The ones who do, they might be worth keeping. But even then, on your terms, at your pace, with your boundaries firm. Because your solitude is not negotiable. Your creative time is sacred. You are at a crossroads. One path is well-worn, familiar, safe. The path of social acceptability and fitting in. It leads to comfort, to normalcy. But on your deathbed, will you regret the parties? Or the work you didn't do? The person you didn't become because you were too busy being a friend? The other path is narrow, lonely at first, and profoundly misunderstood. The path of solitude, of inner wealth, of becoming something instead of belonging to something. Schopenhauer's final wisdom: a man can do what he wants, but not want what he wants. You cannot choose what you desire, but you can choose what you do with your time. So, choose the crowd or the creative work, the comfort of company or the clarity of solitude, the acceptance of others or the acceptance of yourself. You cannot have both fully. Say no to one invitation this week. Use that time to sit with yourself in silence. You will feel guilty. Let them think what they will. Because on the other side of that discomfort is something they will never understand. Freedom. Freedom from the need for their approval. Freedom from the performance. Freedom to be exactly who you are, alone, unobserved, uncompromised. You were never lonely. You were never incomplete. You were just too crowded to notice how full you already are. Be alone. Be misunderstood. Be selective to the point of seeming cold. And in that aloneness, build something they could never understand. A life that doesn't need them. This is not loneliness. This is freedom.